Here we go.
Rise for the strong and the meek, a safe space for all. Let's lift every voice.
Let's take the next 1 minute and share our various platforms we want to share it on, and then we'll come back to this.
In a circle podcast where hearts unite, sharing our truths, bringing hope to the light. Community strong, we're never alone. Together as one, we've created a home. With laughter and love, we break down the walls. No topics too tough, just heed the call. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. So join the conversation, let's set the tone. In a circle podcast where love is well known.
I don't see anybody jamming though. You guys ain't jamming. I didn't like that song. Well, good evening.
Play the song.
Oh, we've been playing the song. You know, we're running out of time, so we got to keep going. Well, good evening to you guys, and good evening to all of our folks watching us. We want to just quickly say to you that we have a guest panelist in the building tonight, and we'll just quickly have her introduce herself. Tonight, we'll be discussing domestic violence. She is a licensed clinician, and she'll, for the next 3 minutes, Ms. D, you can just wrap up your introduction, and then we'll move into the show here and discuss our topic.
You gave me 3 minutes or 20 minutes?
No, 3. I mean, with your profile, I mean, it's going to be hard to do, but try your best.
Good evening, everybody. I see Sam, Abe, Titus, Joey.
You have to unmute your mic.
Can you not hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Dream, Mel, Wina, and Fatu. Good evening, all.
Evening.
Good evening. It is a pleasure to be on. Quick and simple. I am a Liberian woman, mom, working and living in the state of Minnesota. I am a licensed clinician.
Your mic is muted.
I think yours is having problem, Joey. Yours is everyone can hear you.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Joey, now you get a problem or he's gone?
Yeah, so until he can go visit, I've been moving chairman until he can go visit stuff.
Yeah,
let's go ahead.
I'm a licensed clinician. Part of my background is that I have worked in the capacity of a counselor and group facilitator for both court-ordered perpetrators of domestic violence and victims of domestic violence. Currently, I work in a private practice, and I stepped away from the group facilitation, and I just do one-on-one therapy now.
Great. Well, it's good to have you. Our own Liberian sister, you're doing great. What you're doing is wonderful, and we are blessed to have you here tonight with us, and especially discussing this very, very important topic that has some clinical portion to it as well, and we'll go into that. So for the first portion of this, right, we're gonna go into our topic. And then after that, well, maybe for the first 20 minutes, right, or maybe 15 minutes, we'll quickly just go into things, ask you some questions, presenting on this, and then the panelists will join in and ask more questions also. So we will just start by asking you, in your own definition, what is domestic violence?
Domestic violence is the act of any person, so it doesn't have to be just boyfriend, girlfriend, but any persons who live together, who's considered being in a domicile together, that is state recognized, right? You're living in the same house, right? That an act of violence, whether physical or threat that inflicts bodily injury and or psychological injury to that person that they perceive could be in danger for their own safety or the safety of another person, right? That they get the law involved. Sometimes the law get involved, all the times it don't. But anything that inflicts that physical or psychological harm onto another person is considered domestic violence.
And so, what are some of the impacts that a person who experiences domestic violence can have? I mean, what are some of the impact domestic violence can have on individuals who experience domestic violence?
Well, there are many long term, right? The worst of it that can happen is death. People do die by, from domestic violence. But in far and in between as well, there is the also physical scars that people carry from being in domestic violent relationships, right? Or being in domestic violence household. And then there is the unseen scars. That's the psychological trauma that they carry with them for the rest of their lives, whether it's living in fear, even after they move on, if they move on from that relationship or move away from that household, they live with that long-term sense of unsafety. They don't feel safe anymore in surroundings, regardless if the person who was the perpetrator, who did the act, is around them or not, that they lose their sense of safety. That's a long-term impact for somebody.
Well, that's a great impact, and I want to just use this opportunity and go around because I believe this you shared too is very important, and I want to jab in also, not jabbing, but actually ask my panelists here, any of you, any questions with what you just said or comments you want to add on to that?
Yeah, so if I can just chime in here quick, Ms. D, I know like you kind of maybe like emphasize on the physical a little bit, but I was just doing a little bit of research. Like, I mean, domestic like violence or abuse comes in so many forms. Like, hey, it's like emotional, physical, financial. Like in our community, sometimes, you know what I mean? It's like, doesn't even have to be physical, right? It's like, it can be any form. It's like, can you like expand on some of those, like, and what like victims need to do to come forward? Because sometimes, like, I think folks found it difficult to even speak, especially in our community.
Well, you are right. There are many forms of violence or control that people engage in, perpetrators engage in. Well, I mean, I'm going to step back and take something back. I know I've used the word perpetrator. However, I should not do that, because what it does is it also stigmatizes people who engage in acts of domestic violence. So anytime I say perpetrator, you'll catch me, you'll say people who engage in acts of violence, okay? Because what we don't want to do as well is stigmatize and make people afraid or make people feel like I'm looked at or labeled as a bad person. I don't believe that is the objective of why we're here today. It is more to share knowledge and to gain insight. So anytime I slip, you'll catch me, I beg you.
Okay, with that said, I think you can expand on it a little bit.
Yeah, so the question still stands.
Yes.
You want me to ask that question again?
No, I remember it.
Okay.
There are many forms of violence and control. And the reason why I came back to violence and control, the act of psychological manipulation without the physical part that comes to it, that's just the control part, right? Where they're just controlling in over a person's life. But when the physical infliction is done, and when when you add that physical inflictment of inflicting pain on the person, whether it's not even towards the person's body, but even throwing things when the person is around, again, that's safety, right? When the person starts to fear for their life, that's the violence that we're talking about. But broader scale to that, there is control, forms of control that's used in relationships. It can be financial, it can be psychological and emotional, because those two intertwine. It can be religious, it can be cultural. So it can be gender based. So it's very broad. There's a broad scale that we can explore, and there's also violence perpetrated towards children or acts done towards children, also elderly. So the group can just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tatos, you want to come in? You got a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Ms. D, thanks for joining us. We're really appreciative of your presence. So I know you deal with this a lot from both angles, and in dealing with, let's say, our culture, what type of domestic or abuse that you come across the most, especially with our type of people?
When
Awful.
people, I mean, you mean domestic or just asking general abuse? Because when you say abuse, that's big. That's a bigger one.
Yeah, domestic. We want to stick with domestic. Yeah.
Yeah. All the forms of manipulation, control, and abuse. I see all of them. I've worked with people who have experienced all of them, and I've also worked with people who have done those acts towards others, right from within our communities.
And so for those who are on the receiving end of that table, what would you say is the demographic of those people who are on that end of the table? Is it men or women?
Both men and women. Anybody can engage in an act of domestic violence. So it's not really a men or women thing. I've had opportunities of running both, facilitating both groups for women who the court deem as the person who engaging in the act, and men who the court deem as engaging in the act.
Thank you.
I think I just want to like throw something out there too, Ms. D. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I just think just to throw a decimal point in our sense, I think a lot of time we live in a society where people are like, it's easy to stigmatize men as the main, group of people that are causing domestic abuse towards women. But like she said, like Miss D is saying, like it could be it doesn't have a specific gender. I mean, I know society idealizes male gender more, but there's no specific gender when it comes to that piece of that lens of it. So
And to add to what you just said, my sister, statistics have shown that women are more likely to speak out and talk about being victims than men are. So it's not like men are not victims. It's just, again, going back to stigmatizing and culturally or societal ideas of men should not talk about, their pain, or men should not talk about feeling hurt. So a lot of men will not talk about it because it kind of puts a dent on their ideal or their image of self. So it kind of puts a dent on it. But yes, both men and women.
Right.
To that point.
So before, sorry, Melvin, before you ask your question quickly, Ms. D, could you address this question on the screen here? What are the causes of violence?
Causes of violence.
I'm pretty sure that the main domestic violence. What are some things that lead to that?
Great question. There's one underlining diagnosis, and that's the big word called trauma. When we come from histories of trauma, and trauma looks different for everybody. When we come from systems where there have been trauma from generations to the other, and then you add the cultural piece, because I'm speaking to a specific niche, our people, right? When you add tradition and culture of what we have been taught of what a man is and a man does, or a woman is and a woman does, when you underline all of it, there's trauma. There's unhealthy ways of engaging with others, unhealthy ways of expressing your own likes or dislikes. That's at the bottom.
And a lot of us too are product of our environment. Those stimuli are contributors, right? In regards to what Ms. D is saying. So those are all part of it.
Right. Melvin, go ahead and ask the question.
So to that point, as it relates to gender basis, I'm going to throw a little bit of statistics out there a little bit. So the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, NCADV, put out stats that say 1 in 4 women are kind of experiencing intimate domestic violence, and then 1 in 9 men are experiencing those things as well. And then overall, we have 15.4 million kids that do experience those things, and that is funny. The CDC basically reported that. Now, my question to you, Ms. D, as it relates to the data I just kind of lay out, what are some of the things or psychological impacts kids that are in homes that experience these violence we speak about? What are some of those things they do experience, and what are some of those impacts it has on them?
Okay, thank you, Mel. Before I speak on that, I want to speak to the statistic and what we know. Being that a lot of the statistics that we read that are out there, we have to acknowledge that they are culturally biased, in a sense that most times these are data drawn from mostly non-white populations, and so it doesn't cover all of us, right? So we have to acknowledge that. Now, not to say that some of us are not represented in that statistic, but it doesn't show the broader picture. And sometimes, again, going back to our communities and our way that we've been brought up, where men do not report these things. So yes, it will look like 1 in 9, but maybe that 99, and we're just not talking about that. We're not looking at it from that perspective. But to answer your question about children, children are the unseen victims. They are the unheard victims of what happens in households where a lot of dysfunctionality happen. Because one, the children have little control over that household and the things that go on. So they just become burdened. What you see is a child that you see at school that may look like a very troublesome child, or a child that always hitting a friend in back, or, just engaging in those kind of what we would classify as troubled behaviors, right? And when you look at the bottom of that, you will find that there's an environment that have kind of nurtured. And I like what you said, Wina, about saying that there is nature and nurture, and environments that nurture those behavior, right? That it's normalized. That's something that they see every day. And so they move on and have these, they move on and recreate the same experiences that they have in their households. So you will see it in the schools, you will see it within, their friend groups, and then a step further, they will start to date, and they will also recreate the same cycles there.
To that point, to just kind of follow on, what are some of the things you think society can do to address, the recycling of those things, like kids that are experiencing or in homes that having those things happening? What can society do or people do to help mitigate those things?
I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I think what we're doing right now is important, talking about it, breaking down stereotypes about it, to know that it can happen to anyone, and to also try to get the people who are persons engaging in acts of violence towards others to learn more about what they do and the impact it has, not only on themselves, but on others, and to add their children, right? If there are children involved, how that impacts them too in the long run.
Okay. Dream, you've been quiet. You got a question?
No, I'm just listening and trying to learn some things.
No, definitely. Just want to make sure you're here. Chase, Joey, any questions?
And Fatu as well. We shouldn't forget Fatu.
Where is she? Oh,
she's right there. Fatu is right there.
I think
sorry guys, I'm talking. Sorry. Oh my God. Okay, yeah. I'm here. So how can one so my question to you is, how can one identify they've been in domestic violence, or they've been domestic abuse?
Okay, so many times there are outward signs that we see, right? That if you see, for example, a woman who, and I will use women and I will swing over to men as well, right? So you see a woman who in the past that you've known her, that she had a different way or outgoing of being, a way of being, right? How she would carry herself and, how she would interact and engage, right? And all of a sudden, let me just say, she setting down calm. You see her with a person that she identifies as she's dating or whatever it is. And then you start to see the behavior change, where she looks a little more withdrawn than others. Other times, or if she was someone who was talkative and all of a sudden you see her go in her shell, so to speak, you start to notice her clothing and the clothing that she's wearing, because sometimes the scars are on it, and so people want to cover up, right? So if they're covering up too much, right, Not making eye contact, even though for me, again, I try to understand the cultural piece, because not every culture, eye contact is not a thing that every culture makes. But for the larger population, that eye contact is where we communicate and how we kind of, vibe. And so not making eye contact, keeping things very brief, not wanting to share about their lives. Now moving over to the men. So same thing here with men. You start, your friend, your family member, and their personalities, and you start to see those little changes. You start to see that they're unable to make decisions on their own, so to speak, where every time it becomes, I need to go check with this person before I can make this decision, kind of those things. Not saying that it can all be unhealthy, because people do have those kind of agreements, right? But when you start to see those little things, or you just start to see the person again withdrawn, not going out, not talking as much, not sharing as much about the things that's causing them to feel frustrated, or those kind of things, and the physical scars, the marks, right? You can check in.
So, Ms. D, though, just real quick to that, right? What's about maybe that in our community, maybe someone come from the house, like just go out all day, and maybe like, hey, drinking with their bodies, they don't even want to go back home, because probably when they go back home, there's going to be fire in that home or so, and
Right.
things like that. So it's like, are those like signs, like, hey, someone maybe leave their house, go stay with their friends all day, just doesn't want to go
Avoiding
back.
behaviors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Quick question there. Is there any statistic that shows that people that have been affected by domestic violence have engaged into suicide or have suicidal thoughts?
There is a high link, but there's also a higher link to people being victims to the point of death. People who try to leave relationships that are very violent. Sometimes that leaving for them is the most scary part about the whole thing. And so they stay, because they think they're better off staying, that if I leave, there's a chance this person, going back to manipulation and control, may either try to hurt me or hurt someone I love. So I would stay and bear it. So suicide, there's a small, but people dying at the hands of people who engage in abusive acts is bigger.
So,
Are you
concerning the fact that leaving many times can be challenging and hard to do, what are some resources out there for individuals who are in these kinds of relationships and try to leave? What resources are there to help and support them?
So in every community, and this is nationwide, I cannot speak for our various states, but I know for nationwide, there is something called 211 that you can call as a resource line to say that, hey, even if you don't want to identify yourself, or just say, can I get some resources to domestic violence, whether it's shelters or programs in my community. They will look at where you live based on your zip code and give you places for you to be able to reach out to.
So let's ask specifically here within Minnesota, because I just see a question here too now. Specifically in Minnesota, right? Go ahead, go for it.
In Minnesota, there are many. Hennepin County has one. I believe Cornerstone has one. The Center for Victims of Torture has one. There are many. There are many programs. I personally worked for Lee Carlson Center. They were one of the agents in our Minnesota that did a lot of the facilitation of groups. Your insurance card actually too can help you. So call and ask based on where you live.
Is there anything like specific to our community? Like the person want to know, like, I mean, in quick relation
for the African centered?
Well, what is like? Is there like Liberian specific, organization that's focusing on like domestic abuse or domestic violence, or is there any kind of yeah?
Give me 1 second. I've got a 4-year-old who stepped out.
you can always call You can always call 911 as a first call attempt. They would direct you to a center. You can
Thank
always
you.
call the hospital.
Yep.
All hospitals got this domestic violence. The homeless shelter is another one.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
the shelter's got another one. So anywhere where you go for basic necessity. Actually, when you go to the supermarket, right, they got an aid station and posted on the walls in all supermarkets. So gas station as well. That's first aid health. So and mostly last of all is your library. Your library got a lot of information. You can always call the library 411 for information. So
Okay.
my question for you, Ms. D, is so I know I didn't when you was talking earlier and doing your brief background, I couldn't hear you at all. So that's why I went in and came back in. I mean, went out and came back in. But what I want to ask is, what's the core from you being in domestic violence field? What's the core of this problem? Is it more like I know you talk about? I heard you talking about financial, right? Or history of past family members, whatever the case is, right? What's the core of domestic violence? What's the main core as a person who represents domestic violence? What's the core do you think is having this problem, a domestical problem?
The root cause. The root cause.
Yeah. So, Brother Joey, I addressed it earlier, but you missed it. I can reiterate. Going back to the word trauma, the phrase of hurt people, that what you learn in whatever stage or age of life you're in, you kind of recycle that when you don't catch those behaviors, right? When you don't catch those things that are happening. So you move on and you kind of recreate that in other spaces that you live. But trauma is at the core of it. Maladaptive ways of expressing, self-expression. And we must acknowledge the role that culture plays in how we are genderfied, so to speak, how a man is and how a man acts, how a woman is, how a woman acts.
Right. And quickly, I just there are a lot of questions
Thank you.
In the queue there in the comment section. But if you're watching and you have questions, better call the number here 612-516.
Hey Siri.
3349. Call and contribute. We'll let you up in the show here, and you can ask your questions live, and we'll answer them. Okay. So
Can I?
some of the comments and the questions are too long to put up on the screen here. So
someone asked a short question. Or something. He's asking whether there are some preventive measures to domestic violence.
Yes.
How can one prevent? I don't know which aspect he's speaking from, but he wants to know.
Yes, my sister Dream, before I answer that, Abe, I want to go back to something you asked that I don't think was answered. You said you were asking about Liberian specific organizations or facilities.
Yes.
Okay.
Like if there's a nonprofit Liberian organization that's like focused on our community,
So, to my knowledge, if you're talking about operating under the emblem of domestic violence, I don't think there's one specific, but I know that there are several establishments that are Liberian-owned mental health facilities in our areas that people can access. But however, just to have one that is registered and recognized by the state, I cannot pinpoint just one to you, but there are many Liberian mental health and wellness places around.
Okay.
And the next one was, you're welcome. The next question, Dream, I think you were reading in the
preventive measures.
Okay. So what we can do to stop this, again, exactly what we're doing, talking, provide safe spaces for people to be able to check in and not feel judged. So for example, and I'm just going to give a very wild example, right? You remember there was a long time, there was a voice, something that used to come up, tupa, let me go. When I'm ready to beat me, he can dig it. Right? Yeah. So for using that for an example, right? If you have friends who aspire or people who aspire to that narrative, right? maybe being able to educate them about what healthy relationship looks like, that to not supposed to be putting your hands on you, you know, that's not a true and authentic or healthy expression of love. Or for example, if you hear spaces in which they again say, men, you know, men get angry, how they can act. It is not. So demystifying these traits, so to speak, that we think should be the way we express our displeasure or our anger or our feelings is important just to teach people. And again, as I started, we don't want to stigmatize people who engage in these acts, because then they may likely not talk about it and get the help that they need to.
So to that whole feelings part, what about, you know, reading, like doing some reading up, say, hey, maybe like your intimate partner, I mean, you're living together, maybe like, hey, like some satisfaction is not there and stuff like that, and every time the person is, you know, trying to express that and that's not being fulfilled, is that like another form of abuse?
Well, you're talking about lack, like not providing the emotional space for someone to feel safe and talk about their feelings.
Yes.
That's a form of control in itself, right? Because one person controls the expression of how the household will run, right? So that's a form of control. If one person has the upper hand or just the ultimate say so, and the other person don't, is control or manipulation.
Sure.
Okay. So just to say this is a really sensitive topic, and like everybody else is saying, people do not like to speak up. Domestic violence happens in a lot of forms, you know, and from onsets of a lot of relationship of domestic abuse or violence, people ignore stuff like your partner yelling at you when it's not even. There are some simple things that, you know, you guys could have a conversation about, and then the person goes on to start yelling or, you know, getting angry over little things. All these things are signs that people should try and pay attention to. You know, people say, oh, or some women be like, I like for my man to beat on me. Like Miss D said, those things are not healthy. Try and get all the necessary help. Look for the sites that are offering these things and try and educate yourself on what healthy relationships are like. And
right. We know 1 second. I know you say you'll be with us for about 40 minutes. Is that correct?
That what my heart wanted to do, but now you're not holding me.
I just want to chime on.
So is it okay to keep moving?
Yes.
Definitely. She loved it. She loved the show. She loved she loved the information she's giving tonight, and we love her on here too. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's nice.
Go ahead, Winner.
Oh, I just want to piggyback on Dream. I think I really agree with that, because we live in a generation that idealize toxicity as love, right? And I think a lot of this time people are really feeling like, oh, like Miss D was, Dream said, like people would tell you, oh, I like when my man tell me this, tell me that. But okay, I know that's cute, but to what degree do it become, do it start inflicting harm, or do it start setting as a red flag? Like, okay, I should start, talking about this to this person. Like, hey, I understand, like, you can express when you're frustrated, but the way in which you're doing it comes off like this, that, and the third. But we really find ourselves in a generation where people are like, toxicity is so glorified that it kind of overshadow or overlook certain things. But I think that's a good point to keep in mind, because our person is abusive, which it will come out. It will come out eventually. People can try for so long, put on this facade, wear this face mask or whatever, but it's only a matter of time for a certain situation to produce that true character of a person. So I think that, like this statement said, if somebody show you who you are, take that, right? I think we try to sugarcoat, we try to find the good in them, we try to like repaint them or whatever, and then tends to overlook it, and then we tend to prolong, and then it starts getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and before we know it, we are at this stage. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to speak to what you're saying, I'm not really sure if I want to share this, but let me just go ahead. I was in a similar situation before back home from my kid father, and the making an excuse, I didn't even realize what it was until I came to America, making an excuse of I was the first to, raise my voice. I went looking for it, kind of thing. So don't people try to like say blame themselves, like you're saying, especially given the environment we grew up in. Say, oh, the man is supposed to be in charge. As a woman, you're supposed to not go looking for what you didn't lost or something you didn't keep somewhere. Don't go looking for it. People try to put themselves in that place where they blame themselves, and all of those things, bring up to the person saying, like, okay, if I didn't yell, or if I didn't, say something I wasn't supposed to say, it wouldn't have led to this. And like Edwina said, at what level does that get? Before it be tagged as an abuse or as a domestic violence.
Okay.
And I think the terminologist says D, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't that be referred to as victim blaming?
Yes, it is victim blame. There's many forms: victim blaming, victim shaming. There's
manipulation.
Yep. So and it all goes back to the cycle of control, manipulation, and control. But I wanted to add something real quick.
Yeah.
Another reason why in our communities we see that both men and women do not come out and talk. They thing that when I can't tell you my business, then before I go, go Snapchat it, go send it to the gossip blog, go do that one year. It makes people not feel safe. It makes people not feel seen or heard. And so they will not come out and talk. And then there's a big factor. They want you to come chunk rack at me, but I have to say it. There's a religious factor that comes into it, that when people do go seek help, they tell you just go pray about it, versus providing space or resources to people so that they can go get
I
paid.
agree with you. Yeah.
Just go pray.
Well,
Yeah,
coming with your question.
Hi, I have a question. Okay, so most of the time people don't know they're being domestic abused. Like some people don't know that they're in a relationship or they're in a situation. They don't even know they're being abused. So for the listener, can you highlight on that? How can someone know that they're being in an abusive relationship or in a domestic violent situation?
So I will go back to talk about love, right? So again, whoever, and this is many of us, right? Many sisters, many brothers, right? Where our sister was bragging, talking about, oh man, let her, right? When I bought ready to beat me, he can naked me, he can curse me, eh? And she's readily sharing this with probably her friends or probably with someone close, right? To say that how my man can treat me in the way he let me down when he's so jealous about me. Oh, that boy can check through my phone. Oh, when I want ready for me, right? And they're thinking it's an expression of love, right? So being able to talk to the people around you, right? To say, the other day, the way you were talking about Topa, I wanted me and you to talk, right? I wanted to check in with you. I know you say he can be yelling, he can be beating you, and things like that. If you feel comfortable saying, the way I grew up or the way my relationship is, my person don't do none of those things and I still feel love. My person does not raise their voice at me and I still feel love. I'm wondering how you feel. So putting it back again in that person's hand so they can be reflective. I truly wonder how you feel. Do you like when he beats you? What does that take from you? How does that make you feel? And you understand, right? So that they get to start having reflection of, oh, okay, maybe now they are thinking that, this is an example of the closeness in a relationship, to say, they want not the way I know it. And you can give examples. It doesn't, and when you give examples, I beg you, my people, and you'll see that I've kept things very general, right? So when we give examples, let's give examples from something that can be very generalized. Now give the example to the point where you didn't disclose identity of someone who does not want to be disclosed, right? So when we give example, let's keep it, very general, even when we're trying to help somebody. So for example, you can say, my sister husband, my older one, the way they can be her too, then you have already disclosed something that, someone may not want to be disclosed. So we keep it general, but just saying to the effect of, when they come and share their examples to you, that you said if they're not aware that this is happening, then maybe pinpointing certain things and giving them a contrast to say that these other things happen in other relationships where people feel honored, and it don't happen there. They don't be there.
Do you think, just real quick, do you think social media, but with the proliferation on social media these days, everything happening, right? Like it's on social media, whether Snapchat, Facebook, or wherever. Do you think it's contributing to folks maybe like in our community not coming forward, or it's like, is it contributing to, I mean, to the stigma aspect, or like folks not coming forward because like, hey, maybe if you come forward, you might see your name, in one of those gossip chat rooms you're talking about.
Yes. There's a two flip coin to it. We now live in a technological world where we have seen technology do a lot of good things to help raise awareness, to help create platforms like these, right? So we can absolutely say technology is bad, right? Or social media is bad, right? So yes, the positive sides is we can create these forums and we can have these spaces where people can talk and get education or get information they need, right? But yes, on the other side of it, where people's privacy is not respected, if somebody see you as a so-called social media influencer that they think they admire and they trust, and then they call you to say, you do a lot of this, I admire you, and I won't tell you about something that's going on with me. I will use, there's a social media influencer. She's not in the Liberian community, but she's a woman I follow a lot. She's in the Cameroonian community, and she does something that I respect. She always, and this is that what she tell me, so me, I only know what she says. But she always said that she asks permission from the people who come to tell stories. Is this something that you would like me to share? Yes or no? And when she does that, again, she removes the identity of the persons that is directly involved. She makes the story very general in a point that we all can relate, and she talks about it. And she says, let's give, some positive feedback to this anonymous person who brought their story. And you get what I'm saying? Let's give resources. So again, she get it. She asked, would you like me to be a voice and tell your story? But also she knows the importance of keeping people's identity and saying that I will make this very broad, very general. Let people feel free to talk about it.
Ms. D, as a licensed professional clinical counselor, LPCC, is therapy helpful for individuals who have experienced domestic violence?
Absolutely. Therapy is helpful for not just those who experience, but those who engage in acts of violence towards others, because it is a space that they get to reflect, right? They get to learn that much of their behavior, again, going back to this, how we grow up, how we're domesticated, right? And these cycles that we continue through generations, right? That they get to step away for how many ever hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, whatever they put them will be there for. That's for those who are court ordered, right? And then for those who come in, and I have seen people who come in and say, I'm not court ordered, but I did something that I felt very bad about, and I want to be able to get through this therapy. I want to be able to get help for myself, right? So that I don't repeat these things. And so therapy is a space that you come in and you bring all your stuff, right? That you will not feel judged. You bring all your stuff and you lay it out, and let the professional help you untangle that stuff. Let them be able to help you reflect and find new ways. And much of it is a behavioral change, right? Where you got to go back and retrain your brain, right? To learn that certain behaviors I've done in the past, these are the root cause of it. This is why I do it. And here are alternate ways for me to get my needs met without having to engage in these acts.
Right. Just a follow up here. So having these talk therapy, the cognitive reconstruction. So why should a person trust you, right? If they also have problems trusting their friends and families, why should they trust you?
Okay.
With those very secretive, or not secretive, but really crucial and sometimes personal things, why should they trust you as a professional?
So for one, I am bound by legal duty, being that I am licensed with a state, right? That if you feel that some kind of malpractice was done, right? That you feel that your information revealed to me was then passed on, but you got to be able to prove it too, right? Because you can't, if not, people will witch hunt other people too. But I'm bound by ethical duties, right? To be able to keep that space for the person, that they can come in and feel safe. They sign contract with me, I sign contract with them. And if that contract is breached and they can prove it, for one, my license go into the dumpsters, right? Because then it becomes a tally, and the state will say, okay, wait, your own public complaint account, so maybe you have to go under board revision and something like that for them to really see what's going on. And if you are in the mental space to be able to help other people if you're doing more damage. So for one, yes, I'm not just saying myself, I'm saying those who are licensed, okay? You don't have to work with me, but find someone who's licensed, someone who works under guidelines and ethical duties, that know that certain things they cannot do because it is crossing boundaries.
Yeah.
And quickly, before we go to Dream, what is the average cost of therapy?
Oh boy.
It varies though. Depends on if it's
Yeah,
a private
thank you.
practice and stuff.
Thank
It
you.
varies. It fluctuates,
varies.
Sam.
It
Yeah.
varies.
No, I know, but I need somebody to say a figure out there. Somebody might want to know.
About 125
I
to
will throw it
150.
out there. I will throw it
Yeah.
out there. When you go to my Psychology Today page, you will see that I tell you for an individual session with me, it's about from $70 to $90 an hour, right? If you come as a couple, I can range you for anywhere from 100 to 150 an hour. And this is insurance can pay it, right? If you have insurance to pay it, or if you're self-pay, you will. And sometimes I will work on a sliding fee depending how I'm feeling that day, because I still get a pull for my children month too. But
Yeah.
I'm saying that, and we know your point was right. It varies insurance, and sometimes it varies on the clinical person, their certifications that they have, that it just varies.
Right. No, for
Yeah,
sure.
so-
So if somebody came to you and mentioned Inner Circle, would they get a discount? Moving forward?
Y'all say y'all trying me, I'm blocking you after the team. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
Hello.
Dream. Dream. Dream been holding a question for a while. Dream, go ahead.
Yeah, so Ms. D, you mentioned to Fatu's question, she asked, how can a person, identify, and then you said, if you do try to speak, like get close to the person, ask the person, give an example, of a healthy relationship. Some people do not like, when you come to them to discuss their problem, and then you start going on and on about how things are for you, and then some people just don't like having the talk. So if there's no help if there's no way, calling the police is not working, trying to get help to escape is not working, and if the person cannot talk about it to a family friend, what are other ways people can try and get help? What are other ways, as a friend who see another friend in those kind of situations, how can you help without, doing the talking kind of stuff?
Like being expressing her space, something like that.
Yeah. So then a rule of law, right? Or a rule of living that even I go by, right? Asking people what they need, because sometimes they just want to come talk and vent. You're right? Where they just want a space where they feel heard, right? So if they came here to feel heard, right? You just give them that space, right? That they came to feel heard. If they're asking for feedback or they're asking for resource, right? Then you help them. If you don't know, you again always refer them back to their insurance card. Then the insurance people help them find a facility in their community that they feel safe and that they can go to, or a therapist that they feel safe or they can go to.
Right.
But what if this person is
quick question.
sorry. What if this person is not coming to you for help, but you're seeing, like you said, all of the signs that we're supposed to look out for, you're seeing all of those things, and you know that the person needs help, but they're not asking, and police or whatever other resources are not helping.
You wait it out. A big part of this is people need to feel that psychological safety, right? So you wait it out. Many times, there are some domestic violence establishments here, that they only have people that will call their line just to talk, right? Or just to vent, just to let it out and get off that line. Not necessarily that I called you for anything. I called to just talk and feel heard. And when I'm done talking, I leave. Or when I'm done talking, I hang up, right? So sometimes we have to wait it out with people. Let them feel. While you wait it out, you create a space that they don't feel judged, right? So, for example, if I can't talk to you, then, or let me use you. You come to talk to me, Dream, and I say, she come here again last time. I talk to her, and I give her advice. She can't listen. This time, she can, and I'm answering her. I will not inform my phone. Say I'm putting her on mute. I don't get time for this, right? If she gets the vibe that, if I get the vibe that, okay, Dream tired of me now, I don't know where else to go, then they start to close off little by little by little, because they feel like no one will give them that space. So sometimes we gotta wait it out with people.
So let me go.
Let's go around. Let's go around quickly with a round of questioning. Each one of you put your question forth. We want to keep this 5 minutes quickly. Keep her for the next 5 minutes, because she wanted to be up for 40 minutes, and we're going way past that now. So we'll go to Titus, and after Titus, we'll go to Chase. And we'll just ask one question each, and then we'll have a close up here. Okay. So Titus, over to you.
So I'm really enjoying the conversation. I'm learning a lot here. Hopefully, everyone out there is also learning. So what do you say, Ms. D, to folks who are aware, recognize they're in a domestically abusive relationship, yet they choose to stay due to various reasons? If you think about, or you reflect to our folks from back in the day, a lot of the moms stayed in abusive relationships because of the children, because of what they were getting, and even in modern times now, you even hear females say, "I'd rather, cry in Dubai than in a broke, hoopty somewhere." What do you say to folks like that? They know they're in an abusive relationship, but hey, they choose to be there.
You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
That's when we come in with the non-judgmental approach, right? People know what they need best. We cannot assume that we know what other people need, right? We wait things out with people, provide spaces that they don't feel judged, or provide resources, and you wait it out with them. Now, if I'm sitting out here in my place here, I hear boo, 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 going on somewhere that I'm not feeling something about, I will call 911, right, and say I hear something that there needs to be a welfare check. That's another thing that people can do, right? You can do welfare checks for other people if you feel like the person, may be in danger, and the person don't want to ask for help, or don't want to come out and ask for help. You can do welfare checks to say that, and the police and those who are trained know how to go about these things, where sometimes it's not they know that showing up to that woman's house may likely get her killed, or that man's house will likely get him hurt. So then they might, go meet sister or brother to their job or somewhere, or anonymous phone call may call and say, "Is this a good time to talk? Can you meet me at so-and-so place?" So there's welfare checks that you can do. If you suspect that someone is in an abusive relationship or harmful relationship, you can do welfare checks, give enough information for the officers to be able to go out, or sometimes it's just peace officer. They don't have to be the police wearing, uniform people, to just be able to go out or to call and check in on somebody.
Yeah. Thank you. Chase, go ahead.
No, circle back.
Okay. Who wants to go ahead and ask the question?
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. D. We appreciate all of the insights you've given here tonight. These are very helpful. And I hope our audience here kind of following through and listening. I will kind of just put this question out there. We talk about people going through these things and decide not to leave abusive relationship or domestic violence that they are involved in. How you, as a person who wants to help, but also want to respect this person's decision. That we keep talking about, not putting it out there, not, basically generalizing and not being specific with the person that going through it. How can you, someone who wants to help in that situation, knowing this person is going through these kind of things, but you also want to respect them? What are other means of respecting their boundaries, knowing that this is happening to them?
So going back to safety and proximity, right? If you depend on how close you are to the person, right? And if that person is receptive, or you're saying they just don't, whatever it is that's keeping them from coming out to get help or to talk about their situation, right? Now, when you start to see physical bruises and things like that, for me, it's a line. I know that I should do a welfare check, that I can call and let them know enough information to say it's probably not safe to go to that person's house, right? So when you call, give enough information when you do welfare checks. It's probably not safe to go to the person's house around this time to this time. It's probably safe if you went to this, you went at this time, or you met them at this location to do the check. So you give enough information of what you know, because you say you already know, you see the things, you know the things. Give enough information to be able for someone to do the check that would do it in a very anonymous way, that would not name you, right, as the person who called, if that means that it might, mess up the relationship, right? Now, on the other end, as a professional, when I do welfare checks with my clients, I tell them, "Let me did it. I'll tell you why I did it." And you understand? Because my name goes on the record, right? When I make those calls, you have, other people can just call and be anonymous.
So that though, if you say you are the one that did it, who are you telling that? The victim or the victimizer?
Well, it depends on who calls me, right? And going back to consent, I only speak to the person that signs a consent form with me. You can be married. If you call me, if your wife didn't consent for you talking to me, I have nothing to say or add to it. You're not my client. So my identified client is who I work with.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
I got a quick question.
Go ahead, Joey.
Who was that? Oh, okay.
Joey.
Okay.
My question is, what's the age range that you have seen for domestic violence?
I have seen underage children engage in acts of violence towards their parents in the home, right? So it can go from 13, it can go from 10. I've seen that. I've also seen as old can be, 70s, 75. I've seen young middle-aged adults. So there's no age range or cap to domestic violence. It can happen to anyone. And to add to, I think, Dream, you mentioned this, I want to add just a little bit more. There's no socioeconomic status or class to domestic violence. Not rich people thing, not poor people thing, not in the middle people thing. It's an everybody thing. It happens to anyone. Anyone can be a victim. Anyone can be a person engaging in the act.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next question. We know you got a question?
No, I don't have a question, but Ms. D, I just want to say thank you for the insight and then the psychoeducation. Greatly appreciate it.
Trey, you got a last question?
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ms. D. This was so educative tonight. I learned some things. And thank you so much. So we all know domestic violence is a part of behavior. So if a person is in a domestic violence, say, how often, do you consider the act a pardon, that you want to report? Say maybe one time the person yell at you, one time they slap you, or like how often can you, put it in the category? Can it be for you to put in the category of abuse or domestic violence?
So it is not my place or anybody's place to do that for the person, right? They know the acts of violence that happens to them. They know the forms. They know what is small thing, what is big thing, right? However, the state does categorize when you go by criminal offenses. The state does categorize what certain forms of abuse and the criminal charge that gets put next to it, right? So if you want to weigh in that way, then that's a different thing. However, we cannot tell someone just a one-time slap was small thing or not nothing, or this is the 7th time, and the person might still think it's not nothing. So we have to give people that space to be able to have spaces where they feel safe enough that they can go and get support. Well, the state have their own category. That's legal.
Right. So a person who has suffered abuse in a domestic situation, if not treated or if an appropriate intervention has not been given or done, what are some of the long-term clinical impact it can have on a person in their next relationship and in life as a whole?
Long-term impact, what you see is people walk around with high histories of depression, histories of anxiety, and histories of post-traumatic stress disorder. It can also break into, give me a second, Yunge, you have
Yeah, I have another question.
Okay. I'm sorry. So what then you see is a lot of mental health disorders, because studies have shown that even people with personality disorders sometimes come from being in very abusive environments. And so there's a big range. There's a big range that we see happen in the long run.
Right. And just use this time and close, and then after that, we'll sit back here for just a little bit. But just use the time and close. Just close anyhow. What is it that you want to leave with folks watching, or what is it you want to leave with us? What is it you want to leave on this platform tonight?
What I want to leave on this platform is you guys are planting seeds, and it is healthy. It is good. Create more spaces like this, not just for professionals to come on. Sometimes to the extent that someone feels comfortable sharing, whether present or past. Now, if it's present, I always urge that the person you assess for safety, knowing that if it's safe for the person to come out and talk about their experience without being re-victimized, right? So create spaces that people will be able to talk about it. But even in your various circles, your men's circles, our women's circles, right? That we talk about what healthy is, and we talk about, what's not healthy and supporting in an individual, and continue to talk and give resources.
Thank you, Dee. Look, man, we want to say thank you so much for being here tonight with us. We hope that you can continue to be our connection when it comes to clinical things. Weena here is also a practicing clinician herself. So we hope that we can continue to connect with you, and we look forward to doing a lot more with you. So thank you so much for reaching out to Titus and the connection. And that discount though, anybody want therapy, go to her and say,
Me sending bill to you, then you're talking about discount. What kind of thing is this? Oh,
we gotta get a discount. So no, but thanks for
being be a stranger to this platform.
What was that?
Telling her not to be a stranger.
Oh no, she will not be. We have built a connection here already, and we'll continue to connect with you. And once in a while, we'll definitely invite you here to sit with us and have this conversation. Our community lacks a lot of things, and this is why we started this platform here. So we're glad to connect with you. We're glad to have you. And we'll just sit here a little bit and reflect. We thank you for being here tonight. You can take off. And we'll sit back here for the next 5 minutes to just reflect. And then we'll close off. So thank you, Sis Dee, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. So we're still live for the next 5 minutes. We will just reflect. And frankly, I just, what is it that you, after hearing what definitely had to share and hearing from each of us. What is it that you want to leave with folks who are dealing with domestic violence? What is it that you want to leave? Let's start with all the ladies. Let's start with Fatu. Fatu, you ready? Are you ready? If not, we'll start with Winner because we're not ever ready.
No,
Let's go to
let's
Winner.
go.
Let's go to Winner. Winner's a talker. She's always ready. Let's go.
My closing statement tonight would just be to everyone watching, male or female. Miss what's her name? Miss D. Miss D did a great job on explaining on like domestic violence, like sharing some insight on the whole what we call it, facts and stats and all that good stuff. But I just want to leave here tonight letting everybody know like there's no specific genders. Men are getting abused just how women are getting abused. I always say like find a safe space, like Miss D said. In that safe space, make sure you're being validated as well. And if you're somebody that are providing that safe space, please also provide validation. It's very important of that. I'm also understanding that utilize your resources. We all have smartphones, but please utilize your resources. If you just type in domestic violence hotline, there's a lot of resources that is available in the Twin Cities that serve a lot of areas. Also, like Sam said, I'm currently in the verge of being licensed. So if you want to reach my inbox, I can send you some resources, some providers as well. Not where I'm at, but I can send you some good providers in the cities as well that can really help with that area of that you're seeking as well.
Okay. Thank you. Dream?
1 minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, 1 minute each.
Yeah, so Ms. D said everything, that we needed to know from her experience as a licensed person in the field. So try to get help if needed. Go on all the.
Go ahead, you got 30
I'm
seconds.
trying to do a timer, but go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. Go ahead, man.
So people need, I just want to say tonight to the people that are watching, or if you are in this case and you come across this video, pay attention to all the little things like your partner making fun of you, making you feel less of yourself. And to people who are doing these things, try and get help. Whatever the problem is, trauma, childhood, trauma, whatever environment you grew up in that caused you to be the way you are, being abusive or domestically violence to your partner or whomever it is, or child, whatever. Try to get help if you start to notice that you're getting in control, trying to control your partner's life. Try to get help and all this kind of stuff. Thank you guys so much for.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Fatu, 1 minute.
Well, hi, Patu here. Thanks for having me on here, and I just want to thank Miss D for coming on. She already said almost everything. I appreciate that. I mean, you guys already said everything, but I just want to highlight on a little bit, really short thing, whatever. Just for people who are listening, if you're going through domestic violence, you don't know, because most people, when they're being abused, they hide that. They know they're being abused and they hide it. So if you know you're being abused, someone come out to cuddle to you, listen to them and report it. Don't say, oh, this person like me, so I'm not going to report them. If the cops come, they don't show up, or the cops show up, it's like, this person didn't do anything to me. Always speak up. Don't be afraid. Nothing going to happen to you if you speak up. So just put your voice out there so people can listen. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of resources out there to help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Let me just go and buttress what Fatu just said about people who, excuse me, guys, about people who are hiding, what domestically abusive relationship they're in. If you're not thinking about your well-being or your safety or even your life, especially when you're in an environment where you have kids, at least consider the kids. because from this discussion tonight, we learned that at least one of the major reasons people become violent, or one of the places they learn this from, is from childhood, watching their parents being violent. So if you're in that situation, you're an adult and you have these kids, they're watching you, and you see the need, because of the times we're in, you see the need to put on a facade, on social media, present this perfect relationship, but inside you're dying. Get help. Think about the kids. You're not helping those kids. They're most likely going to grow up as folks who are involved with domestic violence. So be very thoughtful about this.
Okay.
Thank you. Melvin?
Yes, sir. Thank you, everybody. Ms. D, if you are still listening, thank you for coming on here. You highlight on a lot of key things that are, affecting people that, see themselves in this kind of situation. Key takeaway tonight. Don't shy away from getting help. If you are if you are a victim. Also, what I was saying, if you're someone who kind of notice you have that anger issue, like Miss D kind of mentioned, I think the best way to deal with these things is to walk away. Always try to walk away, step out of the house when things are getting heated. Go somewhere, just relax yourself. Sometimes when you are in the moment, you don't really think about, what's going on, and you react based off of what's happening. Just try to de-escalate the situation by walking away. To those that are experiencing it, have been a victim, try to seek help, talk to people, seek support. Don't be afraid to ask for help. These things have long-term impact on you negatively. It can either affect you as a person, like you kind of stay away and not, take away that your self-esteem. You don't want that for yourself. So try your best to seek help and look for people who can kind of help you out of that situation. Thank you tonight, guys. Thank you to everybody for contributing to this conversation. I love this platform, and I'll always be here.
Thank you, Melvin. Joey, you got anything for us?
Hey, good evening, everybody. It was a nice message. Thank you to everybody who joined and who's listening. I would just like to say this domestic violence topic, it's been going on for generations. It's going to continue to go on, but I would like to say to everybody is your health is your wealth. Please utilize that. And what you don't know can also hurt you. So don't sit in the background of your life and let somebody destroy you. This is a learned behavior, and manipulation is the key, or control. So make sure you be aware, because like my mom always tell me, you can't buy eyes in stores. This human body, you can't buy it in stores. Neither can you buy a brain. So please.
Thank you, Joey. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Next time, come out of the darkness.
Right.
Your message.
Out of the darkness.
You got any last words, or you skipping?
Yeah, hey, I just want to thank all the panelists on here. Thanks, Miss D. It's a great
Sound like
platform.
the robot.
Yeah, Saga is a great platform. We created this platform for that, and I think that more and more to come here. So back to you.
Fatu, thanks for being here tonight. First time, thank you for being here. And we look forward to you joining us often as you can. Folks, thanks, man. Thanks for watching. I don't have much to say. I think you guys covered it all. For the sake of time, I will save my talking. And we'll be back on Thursday with another topic. We'll be posting the flyer. This platform is for everyone. Let's continue to grow it. Few people have been watching, and we'd like to say thank you. Please try to be here Thursday. We'll be here discussing again, and we want to wish you guys a very good night. And I'll see you in the backstage quickly here, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You too. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.